Eilean Mor is a small island in the Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland. It rises steeply from the Atlantic. There's no harbor. You reach it by crane swung out from a rock ledge. In 1900 it had one building, a lighthouse. 3 men were assigned to it: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, Donald MacArthur. On the 26th of December, a supply ship arrived. No one came to the landing. The keeper, who had been left behind on the mainland, was used to an orderly handoff. He fired a flare, waited, fired again. Nothing moved on the island. They went ashore. The lighthouse was empty, not abandoned in the way you might imagine, not ransacked, not scattered. The beds were made, the clock was wound, a meal was on the table, half-eaten. The lamp was filled with oil and in working order. There was no sign of violence, no blood, no damage. 3 men had simply vanished from a lighthouse on a rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The only thing out of place was the logbook. James Ducat had kept the log meticulously. The final entries in his hand described conditions growing severe, unusual winds, mounting waves. The entries had an odd emotional quality that wasn't typical of official logs. December 12th. Severe winds the likes of which I have never seen in 20 years. December 13th. Storm still raging. Cannot venture out. All 3 of us praying. The last entry was dated December 15th. After that, nothing. Local records from the mainland showed no unusual weather on those days. The storms Ducat described either did not reach the mainland, or they were not storms as anyone else understood them. Search teams examined the island in detail. They found one significant piece of physical evidence. On the western rock, where a concrete wall was in disrepair, they discovered that iron mooring rings set into the rock had been bent or twisted. Supplies stored in a locked chest had been moved and scattered. A rope, coiled and stored well above normal tide reach, had been thrown clear of the rock. The official conclusion, presented by the Lighthouse Board, that 2 of the men had gone down to the western landing to secure equipment during a storm, and that a wave or series of waves had swept them into the sea. The 3rd man had witnessed this from the lighthouse and, in attempting to assist, had also been swept away. This conclusion has never been fully accepted because of what the official conclusion requires you to ignore. The last log entry was December 15th. The supply ship arrived December 26th, 11 days. If the men were swept out to sea, all 3 in a sequence of individual tragedies, who wrote the entries for December 12th, 13th, and 15th? Who maintained the lighthouse lamp? Who ate the meal on the table? No body was ever recovered, not one of the 3. The Atlantic in that region is cold enough to kill in minutes. The currents are unpredictable. But in 11 days, with ships passing through those waters regularly, nothing was found. There are 3 theories that have circulated for over 100 years. The first is the official one, a freak wave. One of them went down to the rocks during the undocumented storm, the other went to help, the 3rd followed, and the sea took all 3. Possible, but it requires every variable to align in precisely the most tragic direction, and it doesn't explain the log entries or the undisturbed state of the lighthouse. The second, something happened between the men. 3 men, isolated on a small island, in worsening conditions, for weeks on end. Cabin fever, violence, 1 man survives and cannot live with what he's done. But there was no blood, no weapon, no body in the lighthouse or anywhere on the island. The 3rd theory is the one that nobody official will say, but that has attached itself to Eilean Mor for over a century. That the men encountered something on that island, in that storm that didn't appear on any mainland weather records, that was not an ordinary wave. There are legends connected to the Flannan Isles that predate the lighthouse by centuries. Local fishermen refused to stay overnight there. They believed the islands were inhabited by something that had no patience for extended human presence. The lighthouse keepers would have known this. They were experienced men. Ducat had 20 years in the service, and yet the entries describe panic, prayer, A storm only they could see. The Eilean Mor case has never been officially reopened. There's nothing to reopen. No crime was alleged. No one was charged. The Lighthouse board issued its report. The lamp was manned by a rotating crew with no long-term assignment, and the island continued to function as a lighthouse until automation in 1971. The automated light still works. No keeper has been assigned to it for over 50 years. 3 men walked into a lighthouse on a Scottish rock in 1900 and did not walk out. The lighthouse was tidy. The meal was on the table. The logbook described weather that didn't exist. Their bodies were never found. And the log entries, written in Ducat's careful hand across 3 days of terror, don't match the calm that investigators found when they arrived. Something happened on Eilean Mor in December 1900. Whatever it was, the island kept its secret.